Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this CPD webinar, EnvisionIT, Enhancing Transition Through Technology. We're pleased to welcome Dr. Margot Izzo, Program Director of the Transition Services Department at The Ohio State University Niswonger Center. We do want to hear from you. Please take a moment at the end of this webinar and fill out our very brief survey. When you complete your survey, you can print out a certificate of participation for the webinar. I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Margot so she can get started.
And I want to just reflect back on how schools prepared my children to be college and career ready. I have two daughters. One was on an IEP, and the second was not on an IEP. They were both educated in inclusive environments for the majority of the day, and they each had about a 4-week unit during one social studies class, I believe it was sophomore year, to take some interest inventories and to fill out a career portfolio. And that was about the extent of what they received in terms of becoming college and career ready. And we see a lot of school districts still implementing that model. So what does it mean to be college and career ready? We define being college and career ready as being able to use technology to search for information that you need to find out, whether it's information about whether a specific career requires a license or a college degree, or using a course management system or a learning management system to be able to access information that an instructor or a teacher puts on the website. And in our early research, we found that students with disabilities had a significant increase in their college readiness skills, meaning they knew more about college, they knew how that you have to pay for college and there are admission requirements, and some community colleges don't require a strong admission requirement, but they're more open access. And students without disabilities did not have a significant growth on those skills, but students with disabilities did have a significant growth. And that research told us that we're not getting our students with disabilities to even think about transitioning to college. And in today's global economy, a college education can open up more doors than you realize. And so we are trying to change how career development is delivered in our middle and our high schools by integrating the EnvisionIT curriculum into a school's course of study so all students are better prepared to transition to college and careers of their choice. So let me tell you a little bit about this EnvisionIT curriculum. We call it a 21st century curriculum. It is designed to serve transition age youth from grades 7 through 12, and we have schools and classrooms implementing at each of those grade levels. It's focused on assisting the general educator, the intervention specialist, and the guidance counselor with information about transition. What we found is many of our general educators that teach the majority of students with disabilities in our public schools today haven't had courses in transition, and they don't understand the IEP and how the IEP requires measurable post-secondary goals for employment, and the IEP requires age-appropriate transition assessment. And so we embedded these types of skills into the curriculum so students themselves are completing age-appropriate transition assessments. We've also aligned the EnvisionIT curriculum with the Common Core standards in English language arts and information and communication technology and financial literacy, as well as transition skills or college career readiness skills, which we do have standards to reflect the college and career readiness skills. And the curriculum is designed to support students that are on IEPs, students with disabilities, as well as students who are required to complete a student success plan. Some states call this an individualized learning plan. And so we take students through the process, teach them the information and communication technology skills of using the internet to answer specific questions about where their skills and abilities and preferences align with careers that are good matches for them. And then those students can design their high school course of study so that they realize why they need to take that geometry class, or why taking career and tech ed courses in high school will make them more employable after high school. So the next slide tells us a little bit more about this curriculum. Students actually build a digital transition portfolio, and Victor will be telling you more about that transition portfolio in a few minutes. Students complete an age-appropriate transition assessment, and if there's one area of the IEP that boggles more special educators' minds, it's how do the age-appropriate transition assessment section of the IEP. Well, wouldn't it be great if students actually could write their own age-appropriate transition assessment statement and say, I took the learning style assessment, and I took this interest inventory and this personality profile, and after getting the results of those interest inventories and profiles, I then researched careers that I thought were a good match. And after I did my research, I decided that that I am going to go to college to become a patient care associate or a veterinary assistant or an auto technology specialist. Wouldn't that be great if students, as part of their English language arts class or as part of their elective courses, could actually help us educators write their age-appropriate transition assessment? And wouldn't it be even greater if we could write valid, measurable post-secondary goals for employment and education and training on students' IEPs? Because we've implemented EnvisionIT in a number of inclusive environments, we've incorporated a number of universal design for learning strategies into the curriculum, and we've used evidence-centered design features to design all of our unit quizzes so that teachers don't have to spend hours grading, but students can simply take a quiz online, and teachers can learn to export those quiz results into their grade book and spend their time doing more thoughtful things like figuring out how to differentiate instruction for students who may need additional supports. And so we all know that Indicator 13 is a requirement of all schools. And I think I just did give an example of how EnvisionIT includes the opportunity for students to summarize their own age-appropriate transition assessment that includes both surveys and research about what they've learned on the internet about a career they're thinking about entering. And so as students go through the curriculum, they develop a transition portfolio that includes a PowerPoint presentation or another form of electronic communication that summarizes transition assessment, their employment goal, and we always ask students to develop a backup employment goal because often that first employment goal is based on a desire that maybe you haven't thought about all the skills you'll need, and that backup goal is a great way to make sure that students have two goals to consider as they transition to college and careers. After the fact, even though we developed EnvisionIT from 2003 through 2010 using a very iterative development process where we incorporated suggestions from teachers and students each year we taught the curriculum, we have now aligned it to the Every Student Succeeds Act. Every Student Succeeds Act requires that teachers today incorporate digital learning and blended learning into their classrooms. And digital learning simply means using instructional practices that effectively use technology to strengthen a student's learning experience and encompasses a wide spectrum of tools and practices, including the following. Interactive learning resources, such as using learning management systems, access to online databases, using data and information to personalize learning. And it's all about engaging that student in understanding their learning style, their personality style, and their career preferences to match themselves to careers where their assets are going to make them shine. They use online and computer-based assessments. They collaborate and communicate using Dropboxes and email and submitting assignments digitally. And so it's a hybrid and blended learning model. We didn't design EnvisionIT to be totally self-sufficient or self-directed, although we have had a number of students independently navigate through the curriculum, but we really believe a relationship with a teacher enhances the learning experience for students. And we have courses in different locations, and so we find that by using the internet, the resources that a student needs might not be located in that school, but they can find those resources in different locations using the internet. So the next slide gives specific examples of how EnvisionIT is aligned. And I gave you some of those examples as I went through the digital learning practices and tools. What I love about EnvisionIT is because it's so relevant to students, because if you've ever interviewed students in their senior year and they're graduating and they don't have a plan for transition, those students are nervous. I in fact, talked some students into staying in high school an extra year because they didn't know what they were going to do and they didn't have a transition plan. And they were so relieved to find out that, you know, they could take more time to gain career and tech skills or additional time working with their IEP team to develop and formulate their transition plan a bit more. And so, as students become engaged in planning their transition skills, what we are seeing is there is significant growth in their ICT literacy skills, so the skills you need to search the internet to answer questions using relevant and reliable websites and not being tricked by some of the .coms and .orgs that are out there that might have a bias and not be presenting as accurate information as we as teachers want students to be relying on. And we've also seen growth in their reading and their transition skills. Anything else, Victor, you want to say about the alignment?
Well, Thank you, Margot, and good afternoon. I think I'll get to more of the alignment as I'm going through these slides here on the highlights of the EnvisionIT curriculum. The biggest highlight is that it's free. EnvisionIT was developed with federal funding, so the resources, the curriculum is free, and we also offer technical assistance, and we will be offering technical assistance to sites through 2018, and any new sites that join us to work with EnvisionIT by May of this year, we will offer them also technical assistance and training. And for sites or schools that are at a distance, we do this usually through webinar. We have sites in New York that we work with, and also in Connecticut, and we do a lot of our work through webinar. The EnvisionIT curriculum is evidence-based, standards aligned. It's, as Margot said, it's aligned to transition, technology, English language arts, and financial literacy standards that are both national and, for us in the state of Ohio, for state standards. It's got blended learning and differentiated learning, project-based learning. It supports development of the IEP and student success plans. For especially that Section 5 for post-secondary education and training and post-secondary employment goals. It helps students develop those plans not on their own, but in their own words. So the students are able to direct their learning. We've also got 12 customizable units, and teachers can customize for their location and for their students. And that's one of the great highlights of EnvisionIT, is that it is customizable and very flexible to what students need and what teachers need. We also have all of our course files. All the activities are on Google Drive, and when teachers join the EnvisionIT Teachers Group, they have access to all the curriculum resources and also whatever's on the Google Drive. So if teachers are using Google Classroom, or maybe they're in a situation where they don't have one-to-one technology, these are things that they can download and they can use as either handouts or paper, pencil quizzes and things like that. We do have a pre-unit and post-unit quiz for every unit to gauge the student's learning, and we're gauging the learning in the standards aligned objectives for each unit. And we have learning supports in each unit, guided notes, review sheets, a glossary that's connected to an online dictionary, and also videos interspersed throughout the curriculum. We offer supplemental content on reading and writing and test-taking strategies, and these are things that teachers can also pull out separately when they want to give activities to increase students' literacy and test-taking skills. And then we've got enrichment activities and a resource blog for pacing, for differentiated instruction, and for deeper comprehension in the curriculum. It doesn't say highlight, but one of the big highlights of the curriculum is that students are building a transition portfolio. And one of the schools that we work with in North Columbus is using EnvisionIT, and they've implemented the curriculum into a course they call post-secondary planning. And in that course, it had been mandated that students would develop something called a career passport. However, before they implemented curriculum, the EnvisionIT curriculum, they did not have requirements for what would go into the career passport for the student. So with EnvisionIT, they now have these requirements that students must have, such as the self-assessment results, their age-appropriate transition assessments, college and career comparison tables, and maybe that should read college/training and career comparison tables. Post-secondary goals for 2 career plans. As Margot was talking about, we have students develop a plan A and a plan B. And as she said, usually plan A is something that the student has desired but really hasn't thought through. One of the great examples we have are students who say they want to be professional basketball players. However, they're not on the basketball team and they don't play basketball in any organized fashion. So it's one of those things where we're trying to get students to take a good look at what they're able to do and how they should prepare for it. And then we've got sample college and job applications. One of the reasons we use sample college applications is because in a college application you have the essay, and it encourages the student to write about themselves, their goals, and their experiences, and greater learning and communication. Students develop a resume and cover letter. They develop a high school course schedule so that they can plan out their academics and electives that support their interests. Students develop a PowerPoint or other kind of digital presentation. And the presentation can be used by the student for his or her IEP meetings. So the student can become the leader of the IEP meeting. We also have students develop a career essay or career narrative, and that further increases their communication skills while reinforcing their planning and SMART goals. And we do teach the students SMART goals in the curriculum.
So before you go on, Victor, let me just say that I have been in the classroom and watched students practice their presentation. And what's so interesting is this transition portfolio and the PowerPoint draws a connection between their age-appropriate transition assessment, their employment goal, and their further education and training goal. And there are so many examples, say in a class of 20 students, when they all present to each other as one of the culminating activities that is tied directly to the English language arts standards of using technology to convince others that you have a well thought through presentation. They are learning about so many different careers, and they understand how somebody who is a visual learner or a kinesthetic learner with a very detailed personality style and an extrovert and an introvert picked a career goal of perhaps working with engines or working with tools, and it helps expand that career development process for all students. And I know I've also been at a lot of IEP meetings, and I find that when a student walks into an IEP meeting understanding where they want to go and what they need from the school to help them get there, whether it's courses, whether it's accommodations, whether it's supports, it's an IEP meeting that is a pleasure to be at because everybody's on the same page about supporting that student. It is a wonderful tool for schools to implement EnvisionIT and then have those students be an active participant in their IEP meeting. Of course, in the curriculum, we don't use IEP or measurable employment goal because we are teaching this in a lot of inclusive classrooms, but they develop a SMART goal for employment that is more measurable than what the law requires students to complete.
And before we go on to the next slide, I'd like to tell Elizabeth it's being used in two places. One is East High School in Rochester. The other one is in, Westchester Country Day School is Country Day School is another place where it's being used. For Dr. Jackson, actually Margot is going to be addressing some of the things about the EnvisionIT research results. Valerie, one of the great things about EnvisionIT is that you can join as the EnvisionIT Teachers Group, you can be a teacher, an administrator, a program coordinator, an interventionist, a transition coordinator, because we see all kinds of venues where this curriculum is used, including summer courses or summer programs and after-school enrichment programs.
Thank you, Victor. Victor is the person that you will contact if you want to gain technical assistance or access the curriculum. We have a number of websites that we posted the EnvisionIT curriculum on, and we are, like, for example, in Ohio, the Ohio Department of Education and the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services has a joint website that means Ohio Means Jobs, and we posted the curriculum on the Ohio Means Jobs website as a free resource to everyone. It's also been posted to a number of local school districts' websites. So as districts customize the curriculum and make it more specific to the courses their district offers, it can be posted to their school repository. And so Victor is the technology guru who can help you wade through all the different websites that you're going to see in a future slide. So I want to just give a little bit of information about the curriculum history. We began to develop EnvisionIT in 2003 through a Stepping Stones Phase 1 project, and we implemented it in schools in the Central Ohio area, and then, as I said previously, we would do focus groups with the students to find out what they liked and what we should delete from the curriculum. And then we also did focus groups with teachers. And what was very interesting is when the students said, get rid of this lesson, and then we brought that up to the teachers would often say, no, you need to keep that lesson in, but maybe you can refine it or adapt it in this way to make it a little bit more student-friendly. And so we used input from teachers and students to continually refine the curriculum. Then we won a Phase 2 Stepping Stones grant, and we rigorously researched the curriculum, and we actually were able to do a true experimental research design where we randomly assigned schools to experimental and control groups, and it was in that research phase where we noticed that all students who completed EnvisionIT had a significant increase in their information and communication technology skills. All students with and without how to research a career online. And we found that students who could read at the benchmark and the strategic level of the Ames Web did significantly better in reading post-test, but students who were at that intensive level, so they were reading 3 to 4 grade levels below their current grade level, those were students that EnvisionIT was not as effective. And that goes to make sense. If you've got a curriculum that has to be read by the student through a learning management system, if you have difficulty reading, you will have difficulty comprehending. And we had a successive grant where we incorporated assistive technology, the text-to-speech applications that are out there, and that did increase reading achievement and performance for students who were reading below grade level. But we found that schools still struggle with getting assistive technology to every student who needs it, and students don't want to use assistive technology because it makes them stand out and they look different. And if there's anything that you know about the high school student population is they want to blend in and they don't want to look different. And so they would sacrifice learning and not use their AT even though that was a reasonable accommodation. So now in since 2012, yes,
yeah.
We have a scale-up project. So our job is to take this curriculum and get it out into as many schools as we can. We're probably in about, Victor, 30 schools in Ohio?
Yes.
And we're in 10 to 15 schools in Connecticut. Yep.
Yeah.
And so we have the pleasure of taking this curriculum and working with schools to figure out in what setting is the curriculum going to be most effective? You know, is it an English language arts class, or is it a post-secondary planning class, or is it a college and career planning class? And we're seeing these classes come back, so that's good that more career development classes are on the books again. And then we can help the teachers customize the curriculum to meet their own needs. All right, Cheryl, I'm glad it sounds amazing, and I'm not surprised that you're not familiar with it. I want to thank the Center on Technology for giving us this opportunity to share it, and we're going to give you a number of websites where you can go ahead and explore it. So I want to thank the U.S. Department of Ed Office of Special Ed Programs for really designing a scale-up project and to give us the opportunity to take this evidence-based practice and get it into as many schools as possible. And so we're eager to work with you, Cheryl. Contact Victor, and she'll help you if you have difficulty navigating any of the websites. All right.
Okay, so one of the big questions we get is why EnvisionIT, or how can EnvisionIT help me? And one of the things is having students establish that meaningful career goal and plan, especially through the development of a transition portfolio. They gain important reading and technology literacy skills, and they move closer to a real post-secondary education or employment goal. And it's very important to have students have real and realistic goals and then set plans and action steps for those. And once again, we do use the SMART goals format to help students develop their goals. Let's see. I just wanted to read one question. Can parents access the system? Yes, parents can access EnvisionIT. At the end of this presentation are a bunch of resource slides where you can see the EnvisionIT curriculum. You can preview it. Also, you can contact me. My email address is at the beginning of the presentation, victor.johnson@osumc.edu, and we will be happy to work with you. There is, let's see, having the students do their career goals and plans through the transition portfolio. We also have been helping schools and school districts meeting what they call in Ohio career advising policies. And the career advising policies are required by every district so that they can show how they are helping students with career exploration, self-assessment, goal setting, and planning. And by using EnvisionIT and integrating it into their curriculum, they can help students develop their student success plan. They can use it as a way for all students, because all students with and without disabilities in the state of Ohio have to develop a student success plan. And they can complete the transition assessments and develop the post-secondary goals that would go into that plan. They can also plan their high school courses out so that they are aligning to their interests. And you can use the portfolio in the individualized education program and the student success plan So it helps IEP teams, advisors, and school guidance counselors as well. We just wanted to show you a few quotes. Some of these are typical of what students say when we do focus groups about EnvisionIT after they've taken the course. Through this class, I've learned that it's very important to set goals and achieve them. That's one of the things that you hear a lot in the presentations that students do, is that they didn't realize how much they needed to plan to be ready for life after high school. And then the most useful thing we did in this class was when we wrote our resumes. That is probably the largest comment that we get, is about the resume, is about setting up the resume, because to set up the resume, the student is thinking about their interests, their abilities, their skills, where they want to go, and that kind of thinking and planning that goes into a resume is something that they find very useful and something that they can use for the rest of their life. And the last comment, during my time in EnvisionIT, I've learned about potential career paths, potential colleges, as well as important skills for these goals, learning about careers I might be interested in, help guide me to take the right steps to lead me in that direction. One of the things that we really find is whether the student has an idea when they're in high school, has an idea about the career they'd like to go into, or has no idea about the career. In either case, they're both lacking the planning and goal-setting steps that are necessary to make that happen, or even to figure out what it is that suits my skills, my interests, and my abilities. In Ohio, there are several, well, actually a multitude of courses where EnvisionIT curriculum has been implemented. And as you can see here, in the technology course, and English language arts and career exploration, post-secondary planning, freshman seminar, life skills. One of the ones I want to point out to you is the one on the top right, employability skills, because what we're finding now is the career centers, the career technical education centers in Ohio, even though students are in career tech programs and they come out with a certification or they come out with a credential, these students still have no idea about what's available to them once they get out of high school. And so EnvisionIT helps them plan, helps them think, helps them prepare for that post-secondary life. And we'll get to the research question now, but after Margot talks about research and we show you a few of the EnvisionIT slides, we'll get to the rest of your questions.
All right. So, and I can cover the research fairly quickly. What I want to share with you is the latest couple years of research. And so in earlier research studies, we had multiple years where our intervention group significantly increased their IT literacy skills and significantly increased their transition skills. And this was across both students with disabilities and students without disabilities. We were in a number of special ed classrooms and a number of inclusive classrooms, and some classrooms met over a semester and the others met a full school year. And let's get to the results, okay. Victor. So we already had proven that EnvisionIT significantly increases ICT, literacy, and transition skills, but we hadn't proven through quantitative research what the effects of EnvisionIT were on reading. And does the effect differ by grade or by length of class, semester or year? So is it more effective and we only get significant gains if EnvisionIT is taught across a year versus if it's taught in a semester class? And so we wanted to answer those questions, and we had intervention and comparison groups who took the Ames Webb 8th grade reading maze before and after the curriculum as a pre and a post test. This is a description of a multi-level linear modeling analysis that was utilized, and it is just you just have to believe our researcher, and I'm not even going to try to explain this because it's, we had to look at the effects of students that were nested in teachers and have different levels, and it's probably more than you really want to know. So let's just get to the results. So we found that reading, the blue is the intervention group, and even though the intervention group was reading lower and their pretest average was 23.68, they gained up 3 points up to 26.03. So there was a significant gain in the intervention group, whereas the comparison group went from a 30 to a 31. And so we tripled the increase in reading, and when we used the multilinear modeling, we found that that was a significant effect. And so this is where you can see that we controlled for free and reduced price lunch and whether the curriculum was taught in a semester class or a full year. And it didn't matter whether the student was free and reduced lunch, and it didn't matter if the teacher was teaching it in a semester or a year. The students had a significant and large effect on reading scores, meaning that they increased their reading post as opposed to the pretest reading score. Okay, next slide. And this slide indicates that it didn't matter whether EnvisionIT was taught at 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade. Students in any of those grades that participated in the EnvisionIT intervention significantly increased their reading scores on average. All right? And so the implications are that their EnvisionIT did increase ICT literacy skills and transition skills, as we've said earlier. In the current grant, the pre-post gains were statistically significant. So previous grants it was significant, in our current grant it's significant. And there are some research limitations, as with any studies. We couldn't randomize, and so we just had a project directors meeting last week, and getting access to schools. Schools are being asked to do so much that being able to randomize schools to intervention and control just wasn't possible with the sample we were working with, and there may be a self-report bias. And in some of our classrooms, the students didn't complete EnvisionIT. However, we didn't find that that interfered with getting positive research results. All right, so if you want to know more about the research findings, there's a number of articles that have been published the last 6 years. The 2010 article, starting at the bottom, does share information about the ICT literacy skills. And then the Lombardi et al. Articles published that are in press, they are available online now, and will report the growth in IT literacy skills and the growth in reading skills. And so we're very pleased that you have access to all of these articles to learn more about the research results.
Okay, we just wanted to show you what EnvisionIT looks like when students and teachers are using the Schoology learning management system. There was a question about where you can access the curriculum. The great thing about EnvisionIT is that it's free, but we found that the Schoology learning management system was the friendliest learning management system for EnvisionIT. And Schoology is also free. It is a free, districts can buy an enterprise version, but it's not required that you buy an enterprise version. And you can set up accounts in Schoology as an instructor, as a student, and as a parent. And Anna Maria has put my email address in the chat area. So once again, if you want more information or if you want help accessing the curriculum or looking at samples of the curriculum, you can email me. So this is what you would see, the full 12 units. We have refined EnvisionIT quite a bit in that we've taken those the full 12 units, and we've pared it down for specific needs. So we also have, and you would see this as you join the EnvisionIT Teachers Group, you'd have, one of the resources would be a 6-unit curriculum called Career Advising for Student Success 1 and Career Advising for Student Success 2, and also a curriculum that focuses mainly on financial literacy. And for those of you in Ohio, we have one that focuses on students building the Ohio Means Jobs backpack. So that's what the full 12 looks like. That's what the unit page looks like. And then when you click on a unit, you go to the sections within the unit. And then if I click on a section like this, this is what you as an instructor or a student sees. And on this page is a video. And as I said, we have videos interspersed throughout the curriculum. Most of the videos help the students build their technology skills.
So I just want to say that we've been working with Laderick Horn. Many of you may know Laderick, but we convinced Laderick to tape Dare to Dream for the curriculum, and we had a computer graphic genius who then put a lot of graphics to Dare to Dream. And when you think about it, there are so many students with disabilities who don't understand their disability. They don't know why they're not achieving and reading as well as their non-disabled peers, and they struggle with, am I going to be able to be successful in college or in a career? And I think Laderick's Dare to Dream really hits home for these students. We have some discussion questions that a teacher can lead to talk about, what does it mean to dream beyond just what your parents think you can be, or what a teacher thinks you can be, to really take ownership of who you are.
Okay.
So here are instructions for how to preview EnvisionIT. Victor, you want to tell them about this?
Yeah, so when this webinar is over and you have the slides for the presentation, you can visit this again, but we have the instructions so that you can preview it, EnvisionIT. I wanted to say one thing. Laderick is awesome. You're right, Jenny. Our videos are captioned and transcribed. Also, what we are putting on the Google Drive, we are making sure that all of our videos, all of our resources, all of our curriculum is 504 compliant. So this is something that you can use with a screen reader, or if students with disabilities can access anything that we have in EnvisionIT. So that's the preview. You can see that. But also there was a question about where we were online, and this is a slide. This slide just tells a little bit about our online presence and websites where you can find EnvisionIT. Once again, that's something you can look at when you're looking at the slides offline. And we've got additional resources. All of our student videos, including the video with Laderick Horn, is in this repository. So you can go to this website and you can view all the student videos. We do have a few teacher training videos, some PD videos. You can find just about everything for EnvisionIT on the NYSONGR website. And then a couple of other places, University of Connecticut and the University of Rochester. And I think that's about it, Margot.
Yeah.
So are there any other questions or anything that we missed when we were going through here? Paula, yeah, audio is described for the blind. Yes, that is included.
Right. Early in the 2003 and 5 projects, we piloted with the Ohio State School for the Blind. So accessibility has always been a key concern of the developers, and the Ohio State School for the Blind has customized EnvisionIT, and many of the teachers are still using it.
Alice, we're working on the 2.0 compliance. It's there's our team of 4. We're currently all over the state, but still working on certain things for the curriculum, just to make sure that everyone is able to access the curriculum. We'd like to thank you all for listening in and watching. We are really encouraged about the change that EnvisionIT can make in students' lives. It really is, no matter what the classroom is, what we've seen from the beginning of the classroom to the end of the classroom is, whether it's a high-performing school or not so high-performing school, students are changed, and they have definite goals, they have definite plans, and they know more about themselves and what they have to offer society.
Excellent, Victor. I also want to add that transition often is an add-on. You know, we have a federal law that requires us to deliver age-appropriate transition assessments, but where does that fit into the school day? Mm-hmm. And what we did was we integrated transition planning so that it's the student's responsibility, and we give the student the tools he or she needs to be able to plan their own transition. Mm-hmm. Interrupt me if there is a question, but I want to tell you a story of a student at Ohio State School for the Blind that I worked with. And he was a sophomore student who couldn't decide whether he wanted to go into psychology or go into business. And he knew he'd make more money in business, but he really was interested in psychology. So his employment goal that first, at the end of his sophomore year, was, I'm going to open up a bookstore and focus on psychology books and self-help books to help people. And so he went away for the summer, and I was his mentor. So I went to visit him that next fall, and he goes, Dr. Izzo, can I talk to you? And I said, sure, Michael, what's up? And he said, well, you know, I was watching TV over the summer, and I decided to change my career goal from psychology and business to forensic and juvenile justice. And there we go again. TV is doing more career development than our schools in some situations. But then he goes on and he says, but I went to those websites that I learned about in EnvisionIT, and I found out that both of those careers require a college degree. So I didn't have to change my further education and training goal. I am still going to go to Ohio State University, but can you help me find somebody at OSU to talk to about criminal justice and forensics, you know? And I just thought that's the beauty of it, of the curriculum. We give students the tools they need to go to the Occupational Outlook Handbook and to go to Ohio Means Jobs and answer the questions they have about whether or not a given career is a good match for them or not.
So Elizabeth asked, so if districts want to use the curriculum with their students, they should do what? If your school, district, after-school program, summer program, if you'd like to use EnvisionIT, contact me, email me. Once again, my email address is at the beginning, victor.johnson@osumc.edu. Contact me. We'll get started with familiarizing you with the EnvisionIT resources. Also, how to use them in Schoology if you're not familiar with Schoology. And also, if you don't want to use Schoology, different ways ways that you can use the curriculum in some other LMS or not using an LMS. And once again, if you start working with us before May, we will be happy to do technical assistance and training by webinar. We are at your beck and call.
I want to thank U.S. Department of Education and Cherry Jackson, our project officer, who have been working with us to scale up these evidence-based practices like EnvisionIT. There are a lot of programs out there that right now have government and federal grant money and to scale up evidence-based interventions, and this has been one of the most exciting projects that I've had the opportunity to work on. So, Victor, thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, thank you, Margot. Yes, it is funded by the Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs.
And thank you all. We're looking forward to assisting you learn more about EnvisionIT and figure out how it fits into your schools and into your districts so all students can be better prepared to enter college and or a career of their choice.
Oh, and don't forget the additional resources pages when you're looking at this presentation offline.
And thank you for completing the Survey Monkey. So the Center on Technology and Disability has your feedback to improve these and this and future webinars.
And thanks to Anna Maria. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Anna Maria, for reaching out to us. And again, I want to thank our project team, Alexa Murray, Andrew Bruck, and Victor Johnson, and our project officer, Dr. Jackson.
Thank you very much. Great webinar.
Thank you, Anna Maria.
Are we off?